Thank you, Fred, for that wonderful introduction, and thank you all for having us this morning. I am Xavier Latta, and this is my husband, Stuart. We're the founders of Jacoby Shield. Jacoby Shield is a nonprofit organization that supports and educates bereaved parents, grandparents, siblings, and the community that supports them. Our entrepreneurial journey started almost 10 years ago to the day. Now, I know it said initially 0 to 5 years, but I'm going to tell you a little bit about our journey. Our journey started when our 3-year-old son, Jacoby, was killed due to an injury at a local park. This incident was devastating to our family. We saw that we, as a couple, were grieving, but we also found that our 2 daughters, then 22 and 4-year-old, were also grieving. And we found that with our family's grief, that we noticed that there were, we each grieved differently. And we grieved differently because we each had a different relationship with Jacoby. And through that different relationship, we know that we lost memories and dreams were not only deferred, they were no longer going to be. Many people came around us during that time. Some people said a lot. Some said not enough. And some people didn't say anything at all. Those who did share with us, they said things like, well, he's in a better place. God has gained an angel. The time spent on earth is mere seconds to the time that you'll have together in heaven. Of course, none of those things comforted us because there was no better place for Jacoby to be but with us, his family. We realized if we were the ones, if we were grieving, what were other families hearing and grieving as well? The words that we received didn't comfort us, but it did drive us to find a community that could support the pain that we were sharing, but also had the capacity to hold it. Unfortunately, we didn't find one. So thus, Jacoby Shield. We were determined through our journey that this tragic event was not going to end in tragedy. We were going to find purpose through our pain. Many of you have heard the adage, when life gives you lemons, make lemonade. Or for us, Jacoby Shield is the sweetness that came from the bitterness of our loss. There are many things that we learned in our journey, but as Fred said, today we're only going to be able to share a snippet of what has helped us during this time. The novel by Surrection. Thank you.
So I'm gonna condense. Sorry, this is worst. You bet.
Mike, check.
I want to condense the last the last 25 years of neuroscience in the next 4 to 5 minutes. So this is a brief overview. Have you heard of the 5 stages of grief? Well, that was actually a study that was done for those who were terminally ill, if they knew that they were dying. And guess what? We didn't know that Jacoby was going to die. So that didn't apply to us. But one thing from that is the last of the 5 stages is acceptance. So the 5 stages of grief should be known as the 5 stages of death and dying. Now, this is the top view of the brain. You see an L and you see an R. Now, what does the L stand for? What does the R stand for? Left and right. Well, actually, when it comes to how the brain processes emotions, that's not correct. This is what we found. The L stands for logic and the R stands for relationships. So the 2 halves of the brain are actually different. Now, the number 5 is important when it comes to grief. What we found is there are 5 different areas of the brain that each emotion must go through in order for that emotion is processed properly. Now, this is not where the areas of the brain are. You also see the dotted line. So there's a top half and there's a bottom half. This is actually how the emotions are supposed to go through your travel through your brain in order for that emotion to be properly processed. The first 4 are on the right side, and the last one, level 5, is on the left side. Level one, we call it, I'm just gonna say what it does. That's where your love is actually housed. Level five, what it does is the storytelling. It logically creates a story from the input it receives from the first four levels. Now, when you experience a loss, this is what happens. Levels 3 and 4 actually cramp up, and emotions go from level 1 to level 2 to level 5. And this is what you end up with. Notice that all the activity is at the bottom half of the brain. So when you're in this situation, when you're overwhelmed with any distressing emotion, you have reduced blood flow. That's one thing that happens. You also have an increase of the stress hormone, cortisol. You also lose like 18 different brain functions. So when you're not in your right mind, you're only using half of your brain. That's what that illustrates. What is attachment pain? It's the worst kind of emotional pain that you can feel. Basically, you're sitting at the Thanksgiving table and somebody's not there. That's where the pain comes from. You want to connect with that person, but you just can't. So when they were saying, hey, Jacoby is in a better place, but I want to connect with him, that's where the pain is. And it magnifies what you call the big seven distress emotions. I don't have time today because that's an overview. But if you avoid attachment pain, it's going to lead to what we call the roadrunner syndrome. Now, what's the difference between grief and mourning? Grief is the actual pain that you feel when you can't connect with that loved one. And mourning is the work that you do, that you have to do as a result of grief. Now, looking back at this again, you see all the activity is below on the bottom half of the brain. I'm gonna do a hand illustration. You've got 5 different areas that the brain emotions must go through. 2 of the 5 are cramped up. Now, all the activity is at the bottom half of the brain. What we do is at Jacoby Shield is we help uncramp those areas. Now, instead of that emotion, level 5 being at the bottom half, it's now at the top half. When you're cramped up at the bottom half, level 5 wants to write a story, but it can only write a blues song. It can only write a country western song. Why? Because it's not going through all 5 areas of the brain. Once you cramp up those 2 areas, now that emotion, instead of level 5 being at the bottom half, now it's at the top. Now it can write a hero's epic journey. I've been through some stuff, but now I've made it through the other side. And now I can write another chapter. Child loss. It's a pain so great it pierces your soul. But there is hope. But there's only one hope that makes sure that that pain goes through all 5 levels. Now, you see how that slide, over time, it's going to get less and less. Now, you're not going to eliminate it. Wow, the love will always be there. Because the love will always be there, the pain will always be there. So the goal is not to eliminate the pain, but to make sure it hits all 5 levels. Then you could have an epic journey that you made it on the other side. In recap, grief is a natural expression of love. It's emotional pain. It is not to be avoided. It's a relational problem, and relational problems require relational solutions. When you say, hey, Jacoby's in a better place, that's the old model of the 5 stages of grief. Well, stage 5 is acceptance. You just need to face the facts. Well, that's logic. Because he's in heaven, therefore you don't be sad. That's a logical equation. And that will never pull somebody out of grief. That will never, ever help them move through their grief. Now, this is what we do to help move people through grief through the 5 levels. This is pictures from Camp Shield, where we bring grieving families together because, like I said, we talked about, it was our entire family unit. So you bring the entire family unit together, and we say, joy shared is joy multiplied, and sorrow shared is sorrow divided. So Camp Shield is a place where, hey, we share our sorrows, we share our joys. You're able to get that emotion, that do the work of mourning to make sure that grief goes through our 5 levels. At the bottom, we're actually doing Tai Chi, that body movement.
That looks a little fun.
Now, these pictures are from our superhero 5K that we had earlier
This past April.
last month. And you'll see why, the next slide, why it's a superhero 5K. So we actually had a contest. Hey, so we want to make it fun. It's for the entire family. It's for serious runners. The person who won actually won the Governor's Cup, which is a big race. He ran that 2 weeks prior to ours. And we also want to have the entire family see the kids there doing the tug of war. But thumbs up. Why do we have a superhero 5K? Because Jacoby was recognized by Marvel Comics as a fallen Avenger. Yes. So you're looking at parents of Avengers right there. But I have just, in the past 5 minutes, taken you what neuroscientists have learned in the past 25 years. And we want 1 million cups to help us bring this knowledge to everybody, because what?
Grief is everywhere.
I'm Stuart, this is Xavier, and we are Jacoby Shield.